I cannot believe that we're already in the back half of 2024.
Are you kidding me?
But here we are. Before you know it, the calendar will be turning again, and that means we are already getting ready for 2025 conferences, and one that I'm personally very excited to attend again is the Insights EDU conference. If you care at all about growing enrollment and building a student-centered higher ed experience, you really should be at this conference. Registration is now open, so secure your spot while early bird pricing is still available. Visit insightsedu.com for more information and to register. That's visit insightsedu.com for more information and to register.
Hey everybody, this is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and today we are extremely excited to announce our paid subscription service. By subscribing today, you will get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content. That's right, original content and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp. To become a subscriber, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe to our free email newsletter to learn how you can get access. Again, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.
Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode as we fast and furiously punched beyond 900 episodes recently as we attended the Career Education Conference the Career Education College and University Annual Conference. Thanks to our great partners, Lead Squared, who sponsored us to be there. And we interviewed 20 people in and around career colleges and higher ed, which is an important sector to talk to. And I did it with a co-pilot, if you will, and he's come back. He's a glutton for punishment. I made a lot of fun of him. I was making fun of him. I was, doing lots of things, but he keeps coming back for more. I'm going to bring him in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. He's the one and only Douglas Carlson. He is the head of partnerships at Lead Squared. What's going on, Douglas? How are you?
I'm excited to be back, and we have an all Colorado episode today, at least by location anyway.
Little hint, and I had your music queued up, but I'm having some technical difficulties. I can't remember, what was it? Ozzy Osbourne? I think it was Ozzy.
Yeah,
Osbourne.
It was Ozzy. It was my walk-in music.
It was your walk-in music. So you just got the applause today. I hope it worked. Did it work? The applause?
A little bit, yeah.
I amped up the crowd for you. Here, let's see if we can do it again for you a little bit louder. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Douglas Carlson. He needs no introduction at this point. In fact, I think, Douglas, you have done now more co-hosting episodes with me than anyone over those 900 episodes. So congratulations for nothing other than the experience of being with me.
I'll take that mantle. I'll put it on my LinkedIn as a badge.
There you go. You should. You deserve to. Well, we have as Douglas said, we have an all Colorado episode. We're going to bring in the gentleman right now. He's kind of doing some important work. He gets some entrance music because it's still here. Let's see if we can do it right. Ladies and gentlemen. He's Dan Porterfield. He is the president and CEO of the Aspen Institute. Dan, what's going on? How are you?
That's pretty good. I would have thought you were going to come up with like John Denver, Rocky Mountain High or something. But
I didn't have time to go that deep into the 8 tracks. Yeah. The vinyl escaped me. Dan, how are you? How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. It's great to be with you, Joe and Douglas. And what do you want to talk about?
Well, the Aspen Institute is a name that many in higher education come across in different ways. And why don't you set the stage for us? What is the Aspen Institute for anybody that doesn't know? Give us a quick, who do you serve? How do you serve them? Tell us about the institution.
We're a global nonprofit organization founded in 1949. And our reason for being, our purpose is to ignite human potential, to build understanding and promote new possibilities for a better world. We do that through about 50 different kinds of programs that are both domestic and global. And all those programs are about investing in human beings and communities, using dialogue and reason and sort of collective problem solving as our methods. In education, we work a lot in both the K-12 and the higher education sectors. I'll say it fast. We have a college excellence program that focuses on community college excellence and on helping four-year colleges become more inclusive. We also have something called the Stevens Initiative that works worldwide to facilitate cultural exchange among college students in the US and around the world. It's a big program named after Ambassador Christopher Stevens. And we also have a number of programs that facilitate leadership development and college preparedness for almost college students. Some of our work with Opportunity Youth and with single parents also focuses on helping those individuals develop pathways to a life in the economic mainstream that includes college learning.
Amazing.
See, that's amazing for everything that you talked about. One thing that strikes me right away is the human element piece of this. In a world that is becoming increasingly, or at least the focus is moving away from the human element due to technology, how important it is for us to focus on the human element and the dialogue and the physical touch and all of these things that we, I think, take for granted a little bit. How is that I don't know, maybe disrupting or enhancing your strategy?
Thank you. So, of course, technology can be used for good or ill, and it can help individuals learn or it can leave them behind. The funny thing about your question is that we were founded in 1949, in part because of global anxiety about the human being left behind as the technologies of war were developing rapidly. Remember, we had World War II, had nuclear weapons used in Japan by the United States, with the rise of the Soviet system in the Cold War, and the Holocaust. And the original founders of the Aspen Institute, Walter Pepke and a number of academics and business leaders, came together to ask, what could we do to put the human and human dignity back in the center of societal consideration? And our original name was the Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies, because of exactly your point. As technology races forward, it's critical that human beings are not left behind, and rather that we're driving the technology for the societal and human benefits that we seek.
Epic.
Really, some strategic foresight, if you will, by the founders, right? Because technology will never stop, but neither can the human element. It's funny because there's this pendulum, and Douglas, I'll kick it to you in a second, but this pendulum that has been so tech focused, all the writing, all of the news, and all of a sudden there's protests on college campuses, there's an election coming up, and all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, wait a second, we have to remember the human element here. We have to actually agree on something or else things don't work. And the disagreement is permeating our society so rapidly right now. How important is the work at Aspen to bridging divides, right? I mean, that's an important part of what you do.
That's a big part of what we do. And there's a couple dimensions to it. And we're always open to learning more. One is that we want to gather people together so that they can frame problems and then address them, then try to solve them, not just tell them what the problem is that they should be solving. We do this at the local level and at the level of organizational leaders and business. Second thing I would say is that we have some of our work is about helping individuals learn how to have not fewer arguments, but better arguments, which include things like being able to accurately restate what the person you're talking to believes, and not attacking the person, but engaging the idea. And then also in our own arguments, being able to ground our arguments in evidence and why is it that we believe what we believe. And we do a lot of work with younger people on the art of productive argumentation. And then another way that we work, I hope, to facilitate bridging, if you will, is that we hold a lot of convenings all over the world, in Aspen, but all around the world, that seek to bring people together from different walks of life so that they can meet each other and encounter new ideas and see what they agree on as well as what they might disagree on. And our big Aspen convenings are pretty legendary for being creative impartial, and inclusive.
Tell them like it is.
Douglas.
So I'm always hesitant to actually quote anybody because I know who knows what anyone actually says. Like the Mark Twain quote of, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. It just strikes me as exactly what you were founded for in 1949. These things ebb and flow, but I think that is more true now than probably as much as it was in 1949.
At least the thing that's different so much, human nature is probably in many ways the same. What's different is that we've experienced demographic change, that of course there's a lot more nations in the world now than there were because of decolonization and because of the breakup of the Soviet Union. And then third, communications technology means that now there's no degrees of separation between people that exist in the world, and that some bad actors drive dissent and disagreement through very prevalent misinformation or almost goading people into anger. And so those factors have, if anything, intensified the need for bridge builders, dialogue promoters, and problem solvers.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. You almost took the words out of my mouth as far as where we are today. And I'd also be curious, so you're doing this work today, and how does this connect to the fellows? So like being an Aspen fellow, is the idea to take those concepts and have fellows then go back to their institutions and promote those and drive those? And can you tell for our listeners that may not be familiar or may have heard of but don't know the details, can you dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you, Douglas. So we have 4 big bodies of work. One of which is we have about 25 programs that focus on collective problem solving in education, in technology, in the economy, building a more inclusive economy, and building trust. Secondly, we have platforms for dialogue, the Aspen Ideas Festival being the most famous, but also smaller convenings and seminars that we bring people together for. Third, we have 13 global Aspens. The first 2 were Aspen Germany and Aspen Japan, created after the war in a spirit of reunification of the global community. One of our really fascinating ones is Aspen Kyiv in Ukraine. I can say more later. And then we have fellowship programs. That's the 4th body of work. And depending how you want to count what a fellow is, about 4,000 to 6,000 different people have had 1 or 2 year experiences in a fellowship, typically for adults between ages 35 and 45, where they come together as a cohort of 20 and commit to each other that they will be each other's supporters and friends for life beyond the fellowship. Then they meet regularly to go deep with each other about what their values are, what they believe. And so there's a diversity of belief systems gathered within any given fellowship. And then as they go deep with each other about their convictions and their beliefs and their hopes to make the world better, they then make commitments to themselves, really, about how they're going to do that in their future work. And a number of our fellows of our more mature fellows now are leading institutions, like Reed Hastings was a fellow, Reed Hoffman was a fellow before they became a prominent tech CEO. A number of them have entered into politics. About 7 fellows ran for president in 2020 from all these different fellowships. Wes Moore and Raphael Warnock and Gina Armando, who are prominent people that haven't run for president, all did these 2-year fellowships. And then many people that do them go on to lead efforts to solve problems, often through the private sector. The key of those fellowships is, can we gather people up for an honest, no holds barred, regular conversation where I understand myself better because I understand you better, and vice versa. And coming from different walks of life, we look forward to helping each other across the course of our careers and lives. And it really works, but it's work. It's not a reward, it's a commitment. And it's one of the ways I think we make a difference. But we don't pick fellows because we want them to do something. We pick fellows because we want to respond to their desire to go deeper into what they value. And so it's not like we're trying to fix a problem and we pick people so we can fix that problem. Our fellowships are more about finding individuals at an inflection point, who are ready to think a little bit more about how to make a bigger impact by applying themselves and their talent. And then we want them to have the benefit of each other's presence as they seek to do that the rest of their careers.
Oh, interesting. Well, and kind of two things I want to point out is one, it feels like maybe you have a pretty good crystal ball as far as fellows go, picking them. It sounds like a number have gone on to, some pretty impressive things, which obviously isn't necessarily your intent based on what you just said, but I can't not mention that little tongue in cheek.
No, and we picked them, they're aged 35 to 40. So I ran a college and played a leading role in a university, and it's a lot harder to pick 16 and 17-year-olds than
Sure.
to pick 35-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, and I think also to that point as well about the folks that you're selecting, actually, let me rephrase this. So I think one of the things that's really unique about what you're doing, and also kind of reconnecting this back to higher education, is there's room for thought. There's room for bigger picture. There's room for self-reflection. It isn't just about gaining a specific skill or a tactic or things of that nature. Can you speak a little bit about how you kind of potentially quantify some of that impact? Because too often anything that is a little bit fuzzier, kind of bigger picture, folks can kind of poo-poo, and that happens in higher education all the time. To go, these are sort of just big idea thinkers. How does this connect to reality? How does this connect to my day-to-day life? I suspect you have a pretty good answer for this, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So remember, I said there's 4 bodies of work. So we do get impacts from our policy programs and from our convenings and from our global network of countries that have Aspens that are distinctive. But if I just focus on the fellowships, which you've asked about, then one of the things we see is that a number of the fellows who are in business come out of the fellowship with an aspiration to take their business to another level of social significance, to scale positive impact. So to give one example, one of our Henry Crown Fellows is a woman named Naven Salem. And Naven built a small company in, I think it's Rhode Island, that manufactures protein power packs to be provided to malnourished children in the developing world. And she had a small business that was employing some smaller number of people, maybe 30. And she was recruited into and accepted for our Henry Crown Fellowship. She made the commitment to take that fellowship seriously. Some of the contacts and relationships helped her develop a scale plan for her company, which is called Adicia. And she just received an investment of $130 million to essentially help her grow that business and distribute those protein packs to way more children worldwide. And so this is one example of how somebody comes in, learns, grows, and can take their best work to another level of scale. And we have a lot of other examples of fellows who've done that. They've grown, they've leaned in and grown something good because they were in the fellowship. A different model of this would be the person that says, I think I've become more reflective, more thoughtful because I took part in this kind of exercise. And a big one I would call out for that is the U.S. Senator Cory Booker, who was one of our fellows in our Henry Crown program. And Senator Booker has often talked about how being in a fellowship program with primarily private sector leaders, almost all business leaders, and him, gave him this a different and deeper understanding of the power of the private sector to drive positive social gains. And so he was only a city council member at that point, but he became more, if you will, business oriented and business receptive for partnership, which he's been known for. And that was because he took this challenge, I think, to join this group of mostly business people. So that I think the impacts sometimes can be worldview, sometimes can be more practical around pushing forward a project because you're in a new network.
I like that.
Calling all higher ed marketing and enrollment management professionals. Hear, hear. The Insights EDU conference is back. This is your chance to level up your marketing and enrollment management strategies, and the EdUp Experience podcast will be there once again. Join us at the Ritz-Carlton, New Orleans, February 12th through 14th for an unforgettable conference. Registration is now open with early bird pricing.
Outstanding.
Hey everybody, this is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience. Are you enjoying the conversation so far? Good, I hope so. Did you know that you can actually hear this conversation early before anybody else and ad-free, so you don't have to hear my voice during these ads? And did you also know that you could get extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. So go to edupexperience.com, that's EDUP experience.com, and become a subscriber today. First, you got to sign up to our free email newsletter, and then you'll find out how to become a subscriber. Again, go to edupexperience.com.
One of the, as we look towards connections to higher education, you have a couple of programs, the Aspen Rising Presidents Fellowship. You have the Community College Prize that I think is only a couple years old. Maybe it's a little bit newer. You want to go into, and maybe the umbrella to this is we are seeing a lack of trust in higher education. And some of these leaders are going to be the ones that help restore that trust. So something like a fellowship programs becomes so much more important to the future of education, not just becoming a president. Can you talk about these programs and why you think they're so important to the fabric of higher ed right now?
Yeah, thank you. That was a great question. So I'll start with the community college program. Our college excellence program was founded about a decade ago, so it is young, by a leader named Josh Weiner. And he walked into our DC headquarters as the only employee, and he had a vision. His vision was that the community college sector, which has been roundly disparaged in years back, roundly criticized, as if all community colleges, there's 1,000 of them, are the same. His vision was that community colleges can be and have been and should be an engine of upward mobility, that they may be one of the most important institutions in our country for generating, if you will, the American dream. And so he proposed to the Aspen Institute, I can build a program that raises the game of community colleges and helps them be more effective towards their goal of empowering working families to be able to live in the economic mainstream. So that was his vision. He then created three efforts to do that. And first, as you asked, Joe, was the Aspen Prize, awarded to the community college in the country that makes the most progress towards that goal of propelling graduates into the economic mainstream. And he has a jury that makes the decision about who to recognize. And it's about a 16-month process where many schools compete and show what they're doing and learn from each other. They're competing together, not against each other. And then the prize is awarded. It's very data oriented. And so for the listeners that wonder, how do you make that choice? What Josh's team does is it looks at A, success at propelling graduates into family-sustaining jobs. B, the success at making transfer from 2-year to 4-year institutions seamless with no loss of credit. 3, speed to degree in a 2-year program, facilitating movement, effective, fast. And then 4th, building partnerships with the local public school system so that students can earn community college credits while in high school. It's called dual enrollment. Those are the metrics that are most looked at. They require effective collaboration on the one hand with the K through 12 system, and on the other hand with the local business community. You can't build a community college curriculum that empowers students if it's oblivious to what the employers in the area are looking for. So Josh built this whole effort. We've awarded the prize and sometimes had 2 winners, now like 6-7 times over 10 years. Recently, because of the credibility of this effort, Mackenzie Scott made donations of $20-25 million to all of the winners
Epic.
and most of the runner-ups. She made a $500 million commitment, and she basically she and her advisors looked at Josh Weiner's work and picked those institutions. The most recent winners, if you're wondering, was a tie, Imperial College and Imperial Valley College and Amarillo Community College in Texas and California. And actually, those two states are really good at community college. There's a lot of winners coming out of them. Josh also created 2 leadership programs for almost presidents of community colleges and for newly selected, just picked presidents. And now more than 10% of the seated community college presidents have gone through Josh's 1-year leadership program, which is about equipping them to lead these small cities, these escalators of opportunity, effectively and with an outcome-based approach. So that's one of our big things in higher ed. I just want to pause on that so I don't ramble on too much to say that I think Josh shows the power of having a vision for how an institution, in this case, community college, can and should best see and serve the public. And then he went about developing a program to help create exactly that outcome.
Outstanding.
So we've interviewed so many Aspen fellows from community colleges on this podcast. I could probably go back and start naming them off and you'd go, oh yeah, I remember. It's such an important, and many of them many of them were fellows before they were presidents. And then I got them and interviewed them when they became presidents. And many of them, if not most, do go on to run an institution. So this training, this fellowship, this training, this unfiltered feedback that you're able to get from somebody who's doing the job that says, hey, look, here's what you have to look out for. There's that doesn't exist as widely in higher ed as it probably should. It's happening more and more now at other levels too, because of the closures that we're seeing in higher education. It's starting to affect students. And so presidents are going, okay, I got to get other feedback. I got to look at new ways of doing things. And
and by the way, thank you for interviewing those leaders because they need to be seen. Yeah. They're incredible. The community college leaders in our country, you could take like the top 40 or 50 of them and put them in the government, the federal government, any job, whatever the job, and we'd have a strong functioning government because they're so capable. Yeah. And I'd like to take some of them and put them in government right now. If we could. There's some I'm thinking at the top of my head that I just go, these people are amazing. And one of our goals here at the EdUp Experience is to be able to give these emerging and new leaders a microphone to say, here's my institution, here's what I'm doing. Because community colleges are more than serving the students. There's an economic blanket around them. It's job creation, job sustainability. There's an economic impact for a community college that goes beyond just the leader or the student. That's, I think, why you're focused on community colleges, right? Oh, yeah. Exactly right. Part of what they learn to do in our program is asset maps. So they really understand the community, the economic environment they're working in and what the different resources are and opportunities. You could call them a community development college almost. Now you asked about our other higher ed work, and I'll mention 2 4-year college programs that respond to a problem, respond to a critique that I believe we should take seriously. And in general, most critiques come from a place of concern and should be attended to. Sometimes they may be made in extremist terms, but the critique often is right. So one critique of the more selective colleges, think Ivy League, selective privates, public flagships, is that they have not been inclusive enough in actively recruiting and supporting lower income students. And so about 7 years ago, we started a program called the American Talent Initiative. And it's a coalition of more than 130 institutions that are, again, they're selective with very high graduation rates and very good financial aid budgets. And we mobilize them to all commit to increase the enrollment of low-income students by some demonstrable measure. So the whole Ivy League joined, Duke, University of Chicago, MIT, those kinds of schools. Also, the University of Texas, University of Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan, so big public flagships. And then and also the smaller schools, the Amherst, Williams, Franklin and Marshall type schools. So the work is entirely funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies, and because Mike Bloomberg believes in upward mobility, and the meritocracy, he believes in that, profoundly. Like the way Caitlin Clark believes in three-point shooting, he believes in those things so much. So we bring the institutions together at the president level, but also have working groups of their admission deans and their communications people, and help them develop the strategies to increase Pell Grant enrollment. Now, 7 years into it, at those schools, there are 18,000 collectively more Pell Grant students than there were 7 years ago when we started. You might say that's 18,000, that's good. Think of it this way. It's like creating 3 Duke universities entirely for Pell Grant students. And we're obviously still pushing. We're pushing and pushing to keep that number growing. So that's one of our bodies of work. And then the other one in the four-year college, Joe mentioned, again, responding to a need. This year, we went to the Kern Family Foundation and talked with them about creating a fellowship on values, character, pluralism, speech, and the American Academy for new presidents, which could be 1 year, 2 year, even 3 years maybe, to give them a cohort of 20 presidents that will work together to understand how they want to speak about values, character formation, dialogue in a pluralistic context, and then develop specific initiatives to enhance their institution's ability to facilitate open and inclusive and respectful dialogue. And we just got the grant proposal approved, and this year we're now building the program, recruiting the executive director, and we'll start taking new presidents next year. I guess it's possible that some new presidents of Harvard, Penn, Cornell is in the middle of a search for their president. Yale just hired a new president. There's a lot of need for this. It doesn't address every problem, but we've got to get presidents confidently leading their campuses to promote inclusion and protect free expression. And
well
do
said.
that in a way that doesn't allow for intimidation and harassment.
Douglas.
Yeah, well, I know one of the things I wanted to make sure we got to is I saw that you are an author of a recent book. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that and kind of how that ties into your work.
Oh, thank you, Douglas. So I have a book that just came out. It's my first, so I definitely am floating on air. It's called.
Before you say the title, let me just get everybody ready.
Attention.
Okay, go.
It's Mindset Matters, the Power of College to Activate Lifelong Growth. The publisher is Johns Hopkins University Press. They're amazing. And the book does two things. First, it makes an argument for the value of college given the rapidly changing, tech-fired knowledge economy that's global that we live in today. And my argument is that at its best, a four-year college ignites growth mindsets, the perception and belief and reality that you can learn and grow in students because of the unique set of qualities of a four-year residential environment where you get to know faculty, where you have peers from all over the world, where you're living and learning together, where mentorship is constant, where startups are being formed by students in all kinds of ways. And that dynamic, enriched environment, I argue, facilitates developing the belief that I have learned, I can learn, I know how to learn, and I love learning. And that's a growth. Now, the second thing I wanted to accomplish with the book, besides describing something that I've seen and lived in 20 years of higher ed about the value of college, which doesn't dismiss the critiques. It just says what's valuable that we should be investing in. Student learning for life. Then to exemplify my point, I profile about 30 to 35 students who I knew when I was president of Franklin and Marshall College. I don't discuss our mentoring relationship, but I give a thick description of their learning journeys with their permission. And these journeys of learning are from students from all over the American mosaic, learning in and out of class, coming out of college believing that they were a discoverer or a creator or a teammate or a mentor, and that those activated sensibilities, I am going to grow my lifetime because I love mentoring and can do it, or because can create value and can create a company or create a business, small business, or create an artwork. Those growth mindsets, I believe, are pivotal for us to further and promote in our young people. And the stories I tell, I think, exemplify why it's worth it, because you can't read these stories and think these young people aren't worth our time and investment. So thank you for asking about it. The real privilege for me has been the satisfaction of seeing my students happy to be able to tell their stories, which include persevering through difficulty and overcoming obstacles on their journey to create a meaningful college education.
So where do we go to pick this book up, and when? Or
you either go to the Johns Hopkins Press website, or you go to the Amazon website, where since just was released a couple days ago, I think my sales, I'm like number 2,174. So
yeah,
if 2 people buy the book, I might jump 1 million spots right now.
Well, let me tell you something. So for anybody that doesn't know, not that I'm trying to promote my own stuff, because I won't even go there, but I did write a book based on the people I interviewed on the podcast, and I would just do a plug here for Dan. It is better for Dan if you go to Johns Hopkins and buy the book, and not go to Amazon and buy the book. So if you really want to support an author, go to the publisher's website, because Amazon, that money you pay to Amazon, they take the majority of it. And so if you really want to support your local author and the work they're doing in higher ed, go to the publisher's website.
Thank you, Joe. And you know what's great about your podcast, because I think you've done more than 900, is that anybody on your podcast has a story to tell and a platform from which to tell it. And I do think that there's a lot of understandable cynicism in higher ed about price, about about woke culture, about students paying for the party, about college not facilitating upward mobility. There's all these critiques. And somewhere in all of that, we have to center on student learning and student experience, so that as we reform the systems, we also protect what's best. And what's best is when a young person comes alive to their capability to learn and grow for their lifetimes. And when that transformation happens, it's actually a thing of beauty.
This will be an important a book for higher education. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy, because the way you're saying what you're saying is important. And I hope our listeners are paying attention to it. You're not arguing against the detractors that are saying that, you know what, higher ed, maybe the degree doesn't have as much value. Maybe it's too expensive in higher ed. We need to rethink seat time. We need to think the Carnegie unit. We need to rethink all these things. You're saying that mentorship and the capacity for learning has value. Exactly. And that value, whatever surrounds it. It's always there's always going to be something that surrounds it. But to devalue that which we know has value needs to be eradicated. We need to make sure we're focusing on the piece that has value, that's learning.
Exactly. And exactly. And I think that on every single campus, there are students like Akbar Hussein, Charisma Lambert, Wyatt Fabian, Karen Miller, who I profile in my book. They're all different backgrounds, all different stories. And there are professors like Ken Hess or Catherine McClelland or Susan Dicklich, whose relationship with students I described. Every campus has this. And the leaders of the campuses and the participants in the experience do need to explicate what's happening here, who's benefiting, how are we learning, and then double down on what's working. Not that we're good enough now, but how do we get even more empowering for students and learners of all types? How do we strengthen what's good and then attend to the challenges of what needs work? And on the cost, I really think what's needed is a new compact that requires probably 3 things. One is schools need to contain their cost increases or cut costs. They just have to. That's hard, but they have to. B, federal government and to an extent state government should increase their investment in scholarships. That's really what I'm saying. Just give more money to support students from modest backgrounds, and maybe double the Pell Grant. That's one easy thing to do. But there should be cost containment. And then third, for students who do borrow, and it's okay to borrow, we should contain the debt level. But more importantly, actually, we should make it possible to pay out of a small percentage of your income for a period of time, and maybe waive those payments if you're serving in the Army or as a police officer or a teacher. And I think those three things, containing and cutting costs, investing at the level we used to in our country in scholarships, and third, being more flexible about repayment, I think would actually solve the financial problem, or at least significantly address it. And I have no problem with virtual learning as a component of anybody's educational experience, or even the whole of their experience, if that's what they can only do. We can make virtual learning even more impactful over time. And I think that on residential campuses, having experience with virtual learning is valuable, because you have to learn virtually in the workplace, and because virtual learning can allow you to bring together students from all parts of the world who aren't on the campus. So I'm not against, I don't express extreme views. I try to say, what can we do that helps students in the world we live in today, fast changing, highly technological, with virtual encounters and experiences and work as a part of the future, and have college, mend itself for greater emphasis there.
Douglas, anything else you want to ask Dan before we give him the final question?
No, I think I love the final question, so let's jump on in.
Uh-oh, I'm worried. Go ahead.
By the way, everybody, if you're listening, let's get Dan to #1 bestseller in the higher education. Actually, that's, if you go to Amazon and buy his book, then just make sure that we're getting him in the ranking. But it's better for a book author financially to go to the publisher. I'll just keep saying that as somebody that knows. But Dan, I think it's important. This is an important book. It's an important time for higher education as we look at the future. And so my question to you, my friend, is what does the future of higher education hold?
I think there are several futures out there. It's up to us to claim the future that we seek. And so I believe that higher education will be even more important if we adapt to today's environment, because people need to learn for a lifetime. They need to build growth mindsets when they're young, and they need to exercise those growth mindsets when they're older and they're working and they're changing and the economy's changing. And so to me, if higher education triples down on its student-serving mission and gets a little more intentional about providing the sequenced learning and growth experiences that that activate growth mindsets, and then if we're present, open, and available to young adults, middle-aged adults, and older adults on their working and learning journey, so we offer more, I think we can be the key to this next century of American experience. There's a book that came out maybe 20 years ago that argued that the reason the American economy was so strong in the late 20th century, with technological change at that time, going into the rise of the internet, was because we had the best educated population. That's almost always been the case. In the race between technology and human beings, it's education that lets human beings keep up and drive technology instead of being driven by technology. So I think higher education's got a bold, big future, but we have to prioritize engaging students for real learning and sticking with them as adults.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Douglas, what did you think about this episode? I know you really wanted to be here to talk with Dan, and what'd you learn?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one, Dan, thank you. This was really a lot of fun. And I think just a couple of pieces is, one was where the Aspen Institute knew some pieces about it, but getting that full scope was very helpful. And I think many folks in higher education are similar to myself, like, enough, but you don't know enough. Or you know a bit, but you don't know enough. And then two, I really appreciate kind of your vision and how you're thinking about discourse. That was kind of where we started our conversation about it's okay to disagree. And I think that's so important to kind of highlight. We maybe didn't put in quite those terms, but allowing people to have the tools to disagree more effectively permeates, not just higher education, but everywhere it can be more effective. So I appreciate it. That was one of the big things I kind of actually wrote down as we were going through the conversation. So Dan, thank you for that.
Well, thank you. It's great to have been here. It's an honor. And I looked at the list of others in education who have been on this show, and it's a who's who list of people that really value students and are trying to make the world better. So thank you for providing this framework where we can all connect as like an interconnected community of people that believe in education and believe in people.
Well, you're a part of the EdUp family now, Dan,
Right.
and you'll never escape once you're in. You're in.
Thank you.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, you know Douglas Carlson, my more than often now co-host here on the EdUp Experience podcast. He likes to come on and do his thing. And our guest today, follow his work, pick up his book. He's Dan Porterfield. He is the president and CEO of the Aspen Institute. Dan, it's been a real honor to have you here.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Douglas.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Higher education is evolving. And if you're in marketing and enrollment management, then you need to be at the Insights EDU conference.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Insights EDU 2025 is happening February 12 through 14 in New Orleans, Louisiana. This is your chance to explore the latest trends in higher education and discover new and innovative strategies to level up your program marketing and enrollment. Hear from some of the best speakers in the industry, from companies like Google, LinkedIn, Adobe, and more. Registration is now open, so secure your spot while early bird pricing is still available.
Hey everybody, this is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience. Did you enjoy that conversation? I hope you did. Did you know that you can actually hear this conversation early on and ad-free? And you can also hear extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content. That's right, original content and invites to special events, all while helping to sustain EdUp. Did you know that? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. To become a subscriber, go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com to subscribe to our free email newsletter to learn how you can get access. Again, that's edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com.